Hello again. As I'm sure that most viewers will know, any films, plays, series, television dramas, and so on set in Britain's past now invariably feature black people. The rationale behind this is that there have always been substantial numbers of black people living in this country, but that their presence has been concealed by white supremacist historians, and they have simply been airbrushed from view and removed from sight. The fact that photographs of street scenes from British cities and towns from the late 19th century to the mid-20th show an entirely homogeneous white population is conveniently overlooked, and we are assured that in Tudor times and during the Regency period, there were many black people living in London who attained quite high social positions. One figure which is often bandied about is that in Georgian London there were 20,000 black people. This figure has, we are told, been established by careful research. This is a lie. We can be sure that it is a lie because we can see the original source for the claim, which is from an edition of an 18th century newspaper called the Gentleman's Magazine. I give a link to this in the description to this video. This is the only place where this figure comes from. In 1764, the Gentleman's Magazine carried a piece about what it described as Negro servants in London, and said that the number in this metropolis only is supposed to be near 20,000. Of course, this is the same magazine which reported ghosts and supernatural tales. These were the times when the newspapers reported, apparently without question, things such as a woman called Mary Toft giving birth to rabbits. We can't really take at face value figures and statistics given in the newspaper at that time. It's not a statistical analysis, and we have no reason to think that the number is accurate at all. At that time, the population of London was perhaps 750,000, which would mean that 2 or 3% of the population would have been black. Where did these people vanish to by the time that photography allowed us to examine for ourselves the ethnic breakdown of the city, you might ask? For a new exhibition at the Art Gallery in Buckingham Palace, a painting has been unearthed which shows a black woman in St James's Park in 1745. Use this as the thumbnail to this video. I have a very strong suspicion that we are going to be seeing a good deal of this woman in the coming years. I'm sure that many of us have watched as John Blank, the trumpeter from the early 16th century, has become something of a poster boy for the legend of England's multicultural past. I rather think that this anonymous black woman is going to rise to similar prominence. The very fact that such figures are so astonishingly rare when we see them in paintings, and that there is great excitement whenever a black person turns up, tells us perhaps that they are something of an oddity and were so at the time. Nobody denies for a moment that there were a few black people about, just as there were a handful of Hindus and Chinese people, but they were very much the exception. The idea that 2% of London's population was black is an intriguing one, but there is no evidence at all for such an idea, other than that single reference to which I give a link in the description to this video. The painting, which is to be the centrepiece of the new exhibition, will, however, be touted in the future as conclusive evidence that there were actually black people in London during the Georgian period, and that they weren't all servants, and that this somehow means that Bridgerton is not a complete fantasy. It is. I realise that I'm fighting a lost cause here, and that the idea of Britain as having been full of black people for centuries is now fixed in the minds of many young people. Whether dramas are set in the 1950s, Victorian Britain, Regency London or the Tudor era, black people are likely to be a permanent addition to the scene. The fact that it is all horribly ahistorical hardly matters anymore.